The lawn looks perfect at 6 inches the morning. The grass is even, the hedges are trimmed, the feeder is full. A male northern cardinal lands on the edge of the platform just as the light begins to find the yard. He hesitates. He tilts his head, looks at the seed, and then flies away without eating. Most mornings, this is the first sign. Something in the yard you have built for the birds is wrong, and the birds know it before you do. There is a particular kind of yard in this country. Mowed, mulched, hedged, sprayed in spring, drained in fall, decorated with bright glass, lit at night, and stocked with a feeder. It looks like a refuge. From the window, it is. From the perspective of a chickadee weighing 11 grams, it is a landscape of small, invisible hazards, and any one of them can end her on any given Tuesday. The American Bird Conservancy and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service have spent decades quantifying what kills backyard birds in North America, and the answer is almost never what the homeowner expects. This is Backyard Bird Mind. If the hidden lives of the birds in your yard interest you, subscribe before the next sentence. The next 10 minutes will describe 10 ordinary things in an ordinary yard that are slowly, quietly killing the birds you are trying to feed. The last one on the list kills more songbirds in a single year than every wind turbine and oil spill in North America combined. Number 1. The window you are watching them through. The Smithsonian Migratory Bird Center, in a 2014 study led by Scott Loss, estimated that between 365 million, nearly 1 billion birds die from window collisions in the United States every single year. Most of those collisions do not happen at skyscrapers. They happen at houses 1 and 2 stories tall, at sliding glass doors, at picture windows that reflect the sky. A black-capped chickadee flying at full speed sees a reflection of the very oak it just left and reads it as open air. The strike is silent. The bird often drops into mulch where it is never found. Cornell Lab of Ornithology recommends external screens, paracord curtains, dot patterns spaced no more than 2 inches apart, because birds will try to fly through any opening larger than that. A single untreated window can kill several birds a year for decades without the homeowner ever knowing. Number 2. The feeder itself, when it is not cleaned. The very platform meant to nourish the yard becomes, in warm weeks, one of the most efficient disease transmitters in suburban North America. Salmonellosis outbreaks documented by the Cornell Lab through Project Feeder Watch have killed pine siskins and American goldfinches across entire regions in single winters. House finch eye disease, caused by Mycoplasma gallisepticum, first identified in the mid-1990s near Washington, D.C., spread across the continent in under a decade, almost entirely via shared feeder perches. An infected house finch wipes its swollen eye on the feeder port, and the next bird, often a goldfinch, contracts it within hours. Audubon's guidance is unambiguous. Tube feeders should be cleaned with a 10% bleach solution every 2 weeks, at minimum, every few days during outbreaks. Most feeders in most yards are cleaned once a season, if at all. Number 3. And the Cornell Lab has been blunt about this for 30 years, the outdoor cat. A 2013 paper by Loss, Will, and Mara, published in Nature Communications, estimated that free-ranging domestic cats kill between 1.3 and 4 billion birds in the contiguous United States every year, not feral cats alone. Pet cats, allowed outside for a few hours a day, account for a substantial portion of that total. A well-fed house cat hunts not from hunger but from instinct. The species it catches most often are the species at your feeder, the dark-eyed junco foraging on the ground, the Carolina wren in the brush pile, the fledgling American robin that left the nest 12 hours ago and cannot yet fly more than 4 feet. The American Bird Conservancy's Cats Indoors program exists for one reason. The math is not survivable for ground-feeding songbirds in any yard where a cat is allowed to roam. Number 4. The lawn treatment scheduled in early April. Neonicotinoid pesticides, applied to lawns and ornamental plants, are systemic. They are absorbed by the plant and persist in pollen, in seeds, and in the insects that feed on the treated foliage. A 2019 paper in Science by Eng, Stutchbury, and Morrissey demonstrated that white-crowned sparrows exposed to a single small dose of imidacloprid, the most common neonicotinoid in North America, lost 6% of their body mass within 6 hours and delayed their spring migration by an average of 3.5 days. Delayed migration means missed breeding windows. Missed breeding windows mean fewer young. The eastern bluebird that nests in your box depends on the caterpillars in your oak. If the oak is sprayed, or if the lawn around it is treated, the caterpillars vanish, and the bluebird parents fly twice as far to find food, and the nestlings, which require somewhere between 6,000 and 9,000 caterpillars to fledge a single brood. according to research by Doug Tallamy at the University of Delaware, simply do not get enough. Number 5. The manicured lawn itself. Tallamy's research, drawn together in his work on native landscaping, has shown that a typical American lawn supports almost no insect biomass capable of feeding nestling birds. 96% of North American terrestrial bird species feed their young insects, not seeds. A black-capped chickadee pair will deliver food to the nest somewhere between 300 and 500 times a day during the peak of nestling growth. If the yard is grass, mulch, and ornamental shrubs from Asia, the parents are flying farther and farther to find anything to bring back. The feeder full of sunflower seed does not help the nestlings. They cannot digest it. They need caterpillars. And caterpillars need native oaks, native cherries, native willows. A lawn is, ecologically, a desert with a sprinkler. Number 6. The brush pile you cleaned up last weekend. The Carolina wren that lived in your yard year-round depended on it. The white-throated sparrow that wintered with you used it as a roost on the coldest nights. When temperatures dropped below 20 degrees Fahrenheit, and a small bird needed dense cover to survive until dawn. Cornell Lab's All About Birds entries for both species note repeatedly that brush piles and dense thickets are not optional habitat. They are the difference between a bird surviving a January cold snap and a bird being found stiff in the snow at the base of a fence. The tidy yard, hauled to the curb in paper bags every Sunday, removes the very structures that kept the wintering songbirds alive. But the next one is the one almost no one connects to bird mortality, and it is sitting on the porch right now. Number 7. The outdoor light left on through the night. Birdcast, the migration forecasting project run jointly by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, Colorado State University. The University of Massachusetts Amherst has tracked nocturnal migration across the continental United States in radar detail since 2018. On peak nights in May and September, more than 400 million birds are aloft over North America in a single night, almost all of them songbirds, almost all of them flying between 2,000 and 5,000 feet above your roof. They navigate by the stars and by the Earth's magnetic field. Artificial light at ground level disorients them. A 2017 paper in Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences by Benjamin Van Doren. Colleagues quantified what happens when a single brightly lit installation, the 9/11 tribute in light in New York, is switched on during migration. Within minutes, thousands of birds become trapped in the beam, circling, calling, burning fuel they cannot afford to burn. Your porch light does the same thing in miniature. A wood thrush, a hermit thrush, an oven bird, descending in confusion at 3 inches the morning, can collide with the house, with a window, or simply land exhausted in a place where a cat will find it at sunrise. Lights Out programs run by the Audubon Society in more than 40 American cities have reduced collisions by 60% to 80%, simply by asking people to turn the lights off between 11 at night, 6 inches the morning during migration weeks. Number 8. The hummingbird feeder you forgot to clean. Ruby, throated hummingbirds weigh, on average, 3 grams, roughly the weight of a penny. Their metabolism is the fastest of any bird on Earth. They visit a feeder up to 15 times an hour during peak feeding. A nectar feeder left in the sun for 3 days in July grows a yeast and bacterial colony that ferments the sugar water and, in severe cases, causes a fatal fungal infection of the tongue and crop. The Cornell Lab recommends changing nectar every 2 days when temperatures rise above 80 degrees Fahrenheit, and cleaning the feeder with hot water and a bottle brush every single time. The red dye sold in stores as a hummingbird attractant is not necessary, and several avian veterinarians at the University of California, Davis have raised concerns about its long-term effects on liver function in birds that consume it across an entire summer. Number 9. The dead tree you had removed. Red-bellied woodpeckers, downy woodpeckers, white-breasted nuthatches, and tufted titmice are all secondary or primary cavity nesters. They depend on standing dead wood, what foresters call snags, for nesting and for roosting. A single mature snag can host a downy woodpecker family in spring, a tufted titmouse pair the following year, and a white-breasted nuthatch the year after that. The Cornell Lab's Nest Watch program has documented that the loss of dead wood from suburban yards is one of the strongest correlates with declining cavity nesting populations in the eastern United States. The tree that looked dead and ugly to you was, to 4 species of bird, the most valuable structure in the entire neighborhood. Removing it removed them. And then there is number 10, which is the largest of them all, which kills more birds in a single year than every other cause on this list combined. Number 10. the cumulative loss of the native plant community across the suburban landscape. The 2019 paper in Science by Kenneth Rosenberg and colleagues, drawing on data from the U.S. Geological Survey Bird Banding Lab, the North American Breeding Bird Survey, and Weather Radar, concluded that the bird population of the United States and Canada has declined by 2.9 billion individuals since 1970, almost 3 billion birds gone in a single human lifetime, 1-4. Grassland birds down 53%, boreal forest birds down by 500 million. Even common beloved backyard species, the dark-eyed junco, the white-throated sparrow, the Baltimore oriole, all declining. The evening grosbeak, which used to descend on feeders in the Northeast in flocks of 40, 50 inches the 1980s, has lost 94% of its population since 1970. If you are over 40, the yard you remember from childhood was not nostalgia. It was a different ecosystem. The decline is not concentrated in remote forests. It is concentrated in the open country, the grasslands, and the suburban yards, where ornamental landscaping has replaced the native plants that fed the entire food web. Doug Tallamy's research and the National Audubon Society's Plants for Birds program both arrive at the same conclusion. The single largest action a homeowner can take is not the feeder, not the bird bath, not the nest box. It is replacing turfgrass with native oaks, native cherries, native dogwoods, and native goldenrod. A yard with one mature native oak supports more than 550 species of caterpillar. A yard with one ornamental ginkgo supports 5. The chickadees know which yard they can raise young in. They are not choosing yours, and they are not telling you why. The lawn is still perfect at 6 inches the morning. The grass is even, the hedges are trimmed, the feeder is full. The male northern cardinal lands on the platform, hesitates, tilts his head, and flies away without eating. But now the yard around him is no longer a refuge in the imagination. The window behind him reflects the oak he came from. The feeder he avoided was last cleaned in March. The lawn beneath him was treated in April. The brush pile his mate roosted in last winter was hauled to the curb in November. The dead maple where the downy woodpecker family fledged 3 summers ago was taken down for safety. The porch light burned all night during the second week of May, when 250 million birds were passing overhead. And the cat from 2 houses down is somewhere in the hostas, waiting. The cardinal flies into the neighbor's yard, where a tangle of native viburnum has been allowed to grow wild against a fence, and where the feeder is cleaned every Sunday, and where the lights go out at 10. He lands. He eats. The yard you have been watching for years has been quietly emptying around you, one small decision at a time, and the birds have been telling you the entire time in the only language they have, which is absence. Tell me in the comments, which of these 10 was the one you did not know about? Which one will you change first? The window, the feeder, the light, or the lawn? I read every comment. I'll see you in the next one. Before you close this video, stay with me for a few more minutes, because the story does not end at the cardinal flying to the neighbor's yard. It ends with what happens next, in your yard, this week, this season, this year. And it begins with a number that researchers Scott Loss, Tom Will, Peter Mara published in the Annals of the New York Academy of Sciences in 2013, a number that landed in the ornithology world like a thrown brick. Between 1.3 and 4 billion birds killed by cats in the contiguous United States every single year. Between 365 million and 988 million killed by window collisions, a figure they refined in a separate paper the same year. These were not estimates pulled from the air. They were meta-analyses of decades of mortality studies, scaled to the national landscape, peer-reviewed, and they have held up for more than a decade against every challenge thrown at them. Then, in September 2019, the journal Science published the study that changed the conversation entirely. Kenneth Rosenberg of the Cornell Lab of Ornithology and his co-authors reported a net loss of 2.9 billion breeding birds in North America since 1970. Nearly 3 billion birds gone in a single human lifetime, 1-4. Grassland birds down 53%. Boreal forest birds down by 500 million. Even common, beloved backyard species, the dark-eyed junco, the white-throated sparrow, the Baltimore oriole, all declining. The evening grosbeak, which used to descend on feeders in the Northeast in flocks of 40, 50 inches the 1980s, has lost 94% of its population since 1970. If you are over 40, the yard you remember from childhood was not nostalgia. It was a different ecosystem. Now I know what some of you are thinking because I read every comment. You are thinking, my one yard cannot possibly matter. I am one person. The farms use more pesticide in an afternoon than I use in a decade. The skyscrapers in the city kill more birds in a night than my windows do in a year. And you are not wrong about the scale. But here is the counter-argument, and it comes from a study published in 2020 by Joe Smith and colleagues looking at residential land cover. Private yards in the United States cover roughly 40 million acres. That is larger than the entire national park system. It is larger than the state of Georgia. Lawns alone are the single largest irrigated crop in the country, exceeding corn. When you add a native serviceberry, when you turn off the porch light on May 11th, when you put up $2 worth of parachute cord on the outside of the picture window, you are not making a symbolic gesture. You are altering immeasurable square footage, the largest privately managed habitat mosaic on the continent. Doug Tallamy, the entomologist at the University of Delaware whose book, Bringing Nature Home, came out in 2007, quietly started a revolution, has been making this case for almost 20 years. A single pair of breeding Carolina chickadees, he found, needs between 6,000, 9,000 caterpillars to raise one clutch of 4 to 6 nestlings to fledging, gathered over the 16 days from hatch to leaving the nest. Those caterpillars do not live on Bradford pears or Japanese barberry or Norway maples. They live, overwhelmingly, on native oaks, native cherries, native willows. Tallamy's data showed a single mature white oak supporting 557 species of Lepidoptera. A ginkgo, beautiful as it is, supports 5. The chickadees are not absent from your yard because they forgot the address. They are absent because the menu is empty. So when you ask which one to change first, the honest answer is, change the one you will actually finish this weekend.